I and Kathy Robertson, I guess it was 2 or 3 months ago, that we got together. Got together and talked about Main Street, Alabama, and got me excited about it, and wanted to invite Mary over to let her explain what the program is and how it can, and you can see what their theme is, creating jobs and keeping character. Character, we're talking about character of downtown, specifically of downtown Fayette. And I want you to know that this building here was the old post office. We restored it. It was built in 1936, so you can see it's 75 plus years old. And so we're excited about that. We believe in restoring things here. So we're excited that you're here. We've got a diverse group here, business leaders, Arts Alliance. It's good to see Arts Alliance. And so we're going to let Kathy do the introductions and look forward to hearing what Mary has to say. So.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of the Fayette Community Development Corporation, I want to thank you for giving up this very precious time of your evening that's usually reserved for rejuvenation and relaxation, but you're here because you care, and Fayette wouldn't be the quality community it is without all of you. The past couple of decades have been pretty rough with the tough economy for everyone, including jobs and industry here in Fayette, but I have to say that I am so proud of the way that Fayette has pushed forward, and the council and the county commission and the Chamber of Commerce really deserve a great deal of credit for the improvements and accomplishments over the past decade, despite the difficult circumstances. The CDC is a 501c3 group of volunteers who've been working on a few projects that are in line with the city's strategic planning to be an ACE community and to maintain that designation. The sign-up sheet is going around. We invite everyone to be a part of what we're doing. We have a lot of difficult projects facing us, and but we would really like to see as much participation as possible. As the mayor mentioned, Danny and I both attended a Main Street workshop a few months ago. Neither one of us knew that the other had signed up. I saw it and was interested, and we got really excited about it, as the mayor said, and we wanted you all to have a chance to hear and decide for yourselves what you think and how it would fit Fayette. Mary, as Ray said, is the Main Street Director, Main Street, Alabama. She brings a wealth of experience from her background in community and business development. For 10 years, she was a Main Street Town Director in Emporia, Kansas. And one of the things that impressed me so much is she went from that project, did a couple other things, but she leveraged the funding package and public relations on a project to convert a high school to a hotel and convention center. And just knowing the work that we've been doing on this downtown hotel, I think that's very impressive. And so we're very excited to have you and can't wait to hear what you have to say to benefit Fayette.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time tonight. It started out as kind of a crazy morning. I've been to Montgomery and back already today, and then I said, when we were talking about this, trying to be here at 4 o'clock so I could see a little bit of the community before, I was trying to explain to Marilyn and Elizabeth, who work with me, sometimes forget I have to drive. I don't have a thing. I said, it's 3 hours from Montgomery to Fayette. You've got to give me time to get there. But so I convinced them, and I actually got here 30 minutes early. So I was able to drive around for a little bit and see the town on my own, which I prefer to do when I can. And then take the guided tour. So it's always nice to see kind of what you kick around and find on your own, and then what the guided tour is. And they were both pretty fabulous, by the way. And as she mentioned, I'm from Kansas. Haven't quite got my southern drawl in yet, but my son swears I do. I've been here about 2 years, and he laughs at me every time I say goodbye to him. He swears to sound southern. I think it still sounds pretty Midwestern, buddy, but whatever you think. I want to give you a little bit of background on Main Street in general first, and how it started out as a national approach to downtown revitalization, and then we'll kind of get into the Alabama story and sprinkle it with some experiences that I've had over the years and things that I think we can do to assist any size community in Alabama. Main Street is a national approach to downtown revitalization. And it really came about, it's about 35, 36 years old, and it came about as a part of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And what happened at that time was there was the advent of the interstate system. And it was funny, in another Alabama group, they blamed it on me because I'm from Kansas and Eisenhower was in charge of it. I said, I've never met Eisenhower. Had nothing to do with that. But it was a big response to that. Because prior to that, you shopped pretty much within a 20 to 30 mile radius of wherever it was that you lived. I'm from a small town in Kansas, Garnett, Kansas, about 4,000 people, which was the county seat. Very similar to some of the things that you have here with the county courthouse and the whole 9 yards, and a square, a little bit different than what you have. But my parents, I have 11 brothers and sisters, 6 brothers, 5 sisters, and my mom would traipse us all in to get shoes at the local shoe store and King Oliver's Drugs, which reminds me quite a lot of bowling pharmacy. All those places I remember very fondly as a child. Comes the interstate system and you can travel far suddenly, and you had big cars, gas was cheap, and at that point you could put a whole lot of kids in a car without seatbelts. So off you went. So we started doing things a little bit differently. Then you throw in the internet years later and downtowns were never going to be the same. So if your expectation is that you're going to be taking Fayette back to what it was in the 1950s, you need to let that go. Because it just is, you can't go back, but you can go forward. And the cool thing about the highways is they go both ways. You know what? The internet does too. So there's real opportunities to utilize what was a big detriment to downtowns at one time to be opportunities for downtowns now. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation started paying attention to this, and they said, we're really kind of losing an important part of American life with these small towns dying, and everything was bypass, drive-ups, drive-throughs, drive-arounds, drive-ins. Everything was geared toward the car, and it really changed things. So they came up with the Main Street approach. They tried it out in 5 pilot communities 36 years ago, and it was wildly successful. Then they started spreading it out across the United States. It is now in the US, of course, but it's also in Australia, Japan, and Canada. So that makes conferences really entertaining when everybody comes and you hear all these different accents. It's pretty entertaining. So why even worry about downtowns to begin with? Why shouldn't you just let it go? It's kind of like the dinosaurs and the dodo bird. Just let them go. We had our time, perhaps, but really not. If you think about downtowns, a lot of times they can account for as much as 30% of a town's jobs. And you really need to think of your downtown as a cohesive unit and not as a silo. Hi, how are you? Fine. Not as a silo. And we tend to do that a lot. We think about the pharmacy having 6 employees and the little restaurant thing that you showed me, maybe 3 or 4 employees, and the hairstylist 1 or 2. Instead of looking, and you've got your courthouse here, you've got your city hall here, you've got your post office here. There's probably a lot more employment in this area than you really, if you first think about it. So think about it, first of all, as a cohesive unit, and you'll be surprised at how many jobs are here. And think about it, the percent of tax base that's located here. And your built infrastructure is already here. People a long time ago made an investment in Fayette. And they made an investment in your downtown because it's a beautiful place to be. They did a really nice layout with the courthouse. It's beautiful. You have one of the prettier downtowns that I've been in since I've been in Alabama. It's very nice. I went, wow. They don't have to worry about the design piece. They've got that down. But you got to look at that built infrastructure. You've got to look up. I worked in a little town. I was 10 years a local Main Street director, 5 years with the state of Kansas as their state coordinator. And when I was working as a state coordinator, I went to a little town in Kansas that was having a big gas and oil exploration boom. Fracking, which is a 4-letter word in some states, and whatever it is, though, it does mean economic impact. So this town of about 2,500 people was looking at an influx of 3,000 to 4,000 people for the gas and oil exploration. Now, once it was done, it's going to be an unmanned plant, or very few with 3 or 4 employees, but for that period of time of the exploration, there was going to be a big boom. So visiting with the city staff and some of the economic development people, they're looking at building a whole new subdivision. Can we walk outside? let's look. You have a whole area of downtown buildings, second stories that probably haven't been used in 50 years. And guess what? Your sidewalks and gutter are here, your electric here, your water's here, your sewer is here. Look at all this infrastructure you already have. Why would you build a subdivision that's going to take you 2 years to get done, that'll be empty in a year, instead of looking at your built infrastructure? And it was quite an interesting conversation. Like, oh, we just never really thought of it that way. So then, talking to them about horizontal lot lines instead of vertical lot lines, and going to some of those building owners that hadn't done anything with the upper stories of the buildings for 50 years and saying, we just want to buy the top half. In small towns, they think you're nuts when you say that. But it's nothing but a condo. It's been done before. So once you explain all of that, so the city invested in that instead, which was a good thing, because the exploration boom was done in 3 years instead of the 7. And they had only gotten halfway done. They only ended up with an influx of about 1,200 people, which is still a lot in a small town. And they had a horrible housing deficit in the community. So when everybody left, the locals moved into that housing. And the infrastructure was there. So it turned out to be a win-win for everybody. So it is about being an economic driver in your community. But it is, too, it's a place in our hearts. It's the place you think of when you go home. When I think of home, other than my mom, I think of the square. I think of the bed races that we used to have around the square just before we got killed in football all 4 seasons, never won a game, 4 seasons. Bad. Basketball was good, football not so much. But we still had a lot of fun with the homecoming stuff and all the things we did around the square. That was kind of the gathering place for the community and the crossroads. And even though Pizza Hut's out on the highway, and Highway 59 is a major drag through Garnett, Kansas, and I like pizza as much as anybody else, when I think of home, I don't think of Pizza Hut. I think of downtown and the Square Fair and my mom. So Main Street is a focused approach. There's been a lot of approaches to downtown revitalization over the years. A big one that a lot of people may recognize is urban renewal. Anybody heard of urban renewal? Urban renewal was a big project in the 70s, late 60s into the 70s, where they started making downtowns look like malls. Because malls were it. They were the big thing. So we thought, well, gosh, if we just make downtown look like a mall, it'll save our downtowns. So they shut down the streets, made it all pedestrian-oriented, put in generally pretty horrible vinyl or metal siding on the buildings to make them all look the same, and it failed dismally. That was a HUD program, Housing and Urban Development, and it's pretty entertaining to talk to HUD and ask them for urban unrenewal money. They were not amused. I said, come on, laugh, that was a little funny. But I said if you messed it up, you should have to fix it, but they don't. So we've gone into a lot of communities in Kansas, had 2 or 3 in our Main Street areas that were urban renewal. You are blessed to not be urban renewal, so it's a good thing. But there's been a lot of projects, and I hear the phrase, build it and they will come a lot. And really it should be, build it, you'll spend a lot of money and people still won't come, generally, unless they already have a reason to come there anyway. So build it and they will come just doesn't work. Unless you're building like, Disneyland, then they come. But that isn't happening everywhere. So you have to have something that has a more robust approach to downtown development. So I'm going to talk about the Main Street approach. I told you it was located within or founded by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The National Main Street Center is now still a subsidiary to the National Trust. They are no longer located in DC. They're located in Chicago, which makes me happy to have a little bit less Washington-ish stuff and a little bit more still Chicago, still a big city, but a little more Midwest or a more different way of looking at things. And it's still a very major approach. There is some sort of Main Street program in every state in the United States, and as I mentioned, some other countries as well. Now here in Alabama, you did have a state coordinating program years ago located within the Alabama Historical Commission. In fact, Alabama was one of the first states to come on in the early 80s as a coordinating program, and it was located there for quite some time. And because of where it was located, it had a very heavy influence in historic preservation, because that's where it's located, and design. And they did some really cool things for a long time, so you'll still see some pockets of communities that were part of that program when it was located within the Historical Commission. But as budgets go, everybody went through a tough time, and that program was defunded. So there's not been a state coordinating in the state of Alabama for 10 years, until 2008, when a group of people came together and said, you know, really what we need is a Main Street coordinating program to try to move things forward in our smaller towns. And they pulled together. We are now a private nonprofit, and walking the walk and talking the talk that we expect our communities to do in both the public and private sides. So when I got the call, when I was working on the hotel project that she mentioned, my first initial thing was, you know, I've already done state coordinating stuff. It was fun. I'm ready to do something else. Until they mentioned, one, that it was a relaunch. So you really got to do something fun and innovative. And it was a nonprofit, so we could move quick. So I interviewed for the job and moved here 2 years ago. So it truly was a startup. When I backed out of my driveway June 1st of 2013 in Kansas, I called my board chair at the time and said, all right, I'll be there Monday. Where's the office? Well, we don't have an office. Okay, where do you want me to work? They go, well, we thought you'd like to pick it out. Okay, do you have like something set up, a phone? Or no. No office, no computer, no phone, no website, nothing. I said, holy cow, you're working. It's truly a startup. So it's been quite a ride and a wonderful adventure as we've gotten the program started back up. So the Main Street 4-point approach focuses on 4 different pieces. The first one is organization. And organization is really coming into a community and having them understand that at the end of the day, you are the ones that will make Main Street go, not me. I get very excited about Main Street. It works 100% of the time if you work it. If you think that me coming in and saying this is what you need to do and I leave, and then the next time I come back nothing's done and I have this magic wand and it's suddenly going to happen, it isn't going to happen. So does it work? Yes. Does it work? Absolutely. But it only works if you work it in the interim. Organization is really about understanding how to get the public involved and how to get the volunteer base involved and how to get the community excited about Main Street and set their own goals. Because while it's an approach, it's not a cookie cutter approach. You work within the 4 points, but how far and how fast you drive this is up to you. So it's understanding you have to be involved. Community sets the goals, because if you don't let the community play up front, they don't play behind. So it's not happening to you, it's happening with you if you choose to move forward with this. Second one is promotion. These are all Main Street, Alabama towns. This is a picture of Anniston, the bike race in Anniston, if you're familiar with that. Promotion, and we had a gentleman ask us about promotion when we were out wandering around in the stores, is about selling the image and promise of Main Street to a whole lot of different prospects. Now, there are three prongs to promotion. One of them, Alabama does extraordinarily well, and that's special events. Festivals. Big, Southern hospitality, wow, it's something. And I've been impressed over and over and over again with how well the events, festivals, those types of things are run here. But special events are meant to draw a lot of people in at one time. It's meant to showcase different pieces of your community. Show people that you have things that they want to see and do, but it typically doesn't, you probably don't sell a lot during those events and activities. So that special events, while they're good, is not the only prong of promotion that you can do. It's really meant to get somebody really excited and head up and then they come back. Second prong of promotion is cash registering activities. And that's really what your merchants need. Those aren't always the same thing. Now, sometimes the two tie together and sometimes they don't. So I'm going to give you an example. When I was a local Main Street director, the university was right here. That's why I wound up in Emporia to go to Emporia State University. Go Hornets. So downtown was here. You could throw a rock from downtown onto campus and it wouldn't be a hard throw. That's how close it was. But the students were not shopping downtown. So we're asking students well, let's ask them why. Let's poll them, because when I was a student, I shopped downtown. But they weren't then. And we asked the students, why don't you shop downtown? And they said, well, you got old buildings, you got old people, I'm pretty sure you got old stuff. and we're just not interested. It's like, that's kind of hurtful. You know, we really have some cool things in the downtown area. So we asked them, what's the one thing that you want to buy downtown that you can't get? We'd like to know. Blue jeans. I need to buy blue jeans and I can't buy blue jeans downtown. We're going, we have 5 stores downtown that sell blue jeans. Have you been downtown? So we had to change for them. It was a perception. So it was kind of an image piece as well as a cash register piece. So we did a promotional piece just to those students because it has to be with the understanding the market. So we went and counted all the blue jeans in the stores in the downtown area. And we had a promotional image building piece to the students that said, did you know, in beautiful downtown Emporia, we have 3,484 different pairs of blue jeans in these sizes, these styles, these price points, and here's a $5 coupon to shop. And they did. That's a cash register ringing activity geared toward a specific population. The thing about special events and activities and festivals is you need to have something for everybody, but you're not everybody's market. And when I talk to retailers and I ask them, who's your best customer? And they go, oh, everybody. Everybody loves us. That's not true. So let's talk about my mom doesn't care about blue jeans. That would not have been a good thing for her. She's never worn blue jeans in her life. She's not going. It ain't gonna happen. It just isn't gonna happen. So it would have been a wasted promotion and wasted money for us to do the shotgun approach on that. So it's understanding that focused approach. We have a webinar, since you guys are a downtown network community already, we have a webinar, free, by the way, coming up May 19th on promotions that ring the cash register. Please, we'll send out information to Kathy, whoever our client, probably you, I would guess, and you just send it out to everybody. And you're welcome to just log on. The third part of promotion is image campaigns, and that is dispelling those negative perceptions of your downtown. Now, if it's a reality, you've got a whole other issue to deal with. But if it's truly a perception, then how do you deal with that? I was lucky enough to be the Main Street director when we did our streetscape project in the downtown area, a year-long construction project. Yikes, it was not fun. It was beautiful afterwards, but the construction piece, and probably what you did here, because it's really nice, wasn't fun when it was happening, but how pretty is it now? When we finished, we are located on 2 highways, Highway 99 and Highway 50 intersect in our downtown. One of them is a state highway, the other was a federal highway. We had the big coulee lamps, the highway lamps on Commercial, which was 99, which was a highway, state highway, not a federal, so we could take those coulees down, but we had to have the same candle light power, if anybody understands what, they had to have the same amount of light, but we wanted pedestrian style lights, so it was twice as many lights, but we went from kind of a bright white light that coulees have, highway lights have, to a nice serene kind of yellow light that you would expect in a more walkable pedestrian area. After it was done, anybody over the age of 65 said, downtown's dangerous. It's dark and I'm afraid to go there. Because the change of the color of the light made it appear, if you didn't see as well, that it was darker downtown. We're going, it's lighter. It's the same candlelight. It hasn't changed a bit. So we knew we had to do an image campaign specifically toward that particular audience to bring them downtown at night to show them downtown after dark. We had this whole event to really have people who are suddenly afraid to be downtown because the light was just different. That's an image piece, but it was a perception, not a reality. So if the perception is that your stores, you're going to do an image campaign because the perception is that your stores close at 4:45 and a half, is only works if that's a perception and not a reality. So if the stores do close at 4:45 and a half, that's an issue. So that's a whole other thing to deal with. Does that make sense? So promotion has 3 prongs. Next one is design. Design was the very strong point that Main Street, Alabama had when it was located within the Alabama Historical Commission. They did an outstanding job of the historic preservation piece, and you guys care about your history here. It's obvious with what you've done with some of your existing buildings, saving the post office and putting your city offices here. Beautiful courthouse. I mean, the history makes a difference, and I saw some really cool signs for a bed and breakfast that looks kind of amazing. Rose House. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. So you care about that stuff already. Design isn't just, though, about building facades or about streetscaping, which you have done. In fact, I would like to bring other communities here to show how well you've done it, because you've done a nice job. But it's also about wayfinding. It's about directing people to your district. It's about color. It's about movement. It's about window displays and keeping that street wall going. Now, as a woman who my sons still live in Kansas, but I'm here. Couldn't drag them to Alabama with me. They're still in school. I travel a lot of places by myself, and I walk around because it's my job, and I get a shop. It's a rough life. I go around looking at these storefronts. But as a female who still makes most of the buying decisions in the United States, if the street wall gets broken, and ladies, you know what I'm talking about, cool storefront here, cool storefront here. Oh, that one's boarded up, but I'm brave. I'm going to go to the next one, and you go to the next one, and there's flies in the windows, and then the next one is a blank space where a building used to be, and it's kind of overgrown. You're done. You can have 12 cool stores on the other side of that, but I'm not going there. That's the street wall. That's a design issue. You really don't have much of that, but it is something to think about. But you do need to be thinking a little bit more about some of your window displays as we walked around. There's some help there. In my previous life, before I did Main Street, 17 years with Main Street, so it was a while back, but I was a company trainer for the Dillon's companies. Part of my job was to teach people how to merchandise for profitability. So really teaching people how to re-merchandise a little bit could be very helpful in some of your stores as well. But design is also about the things that aren't so good. Are there cracks in your sidewalks? Do you have building facades that need some help? You have a couple, you have a few boarded up windows, but overall it looks really nice. So I just don't want you to think it's just about a pretty streetscape and you're done, because design is about much more than that. And you could benefit from a wayfinding system. That would be, of course, I'm lost 99% of the time, so it's selfish for me. That's helpful. Last of the 4 points is economic restructuring. And economic restructuring is why I'm here. This was a piece that when I was a local Main Street director, we had a 47% vacancy rate in our downtown. That's about half the buildings. Yeah, it was pretty ugly. And it pleases me so much when I go back now and people whine about, there's no parking. And I'm going, there was a time when you could park semis down the street. No one cared. I'm so happy we have a parking issue. We knew we had to do something fast. Now, that particular program has been in since 1991. So Main Street is not a 5-year fix-it. It's a way of life. You're meant to hang in it and understand how to manage the changes in your downtown over the years. But we thought, we'll just go recruit some businesses. How hard can it be? Put together for I was younger then. So much more energetic. Put together a nice little package. We went to a very nice-end, high-end gift shop in a very nice market area of Kansas City, because we're not far from the Kansas City area there in Emporia. And the lady was super nice, made an appointment, sat down, talked to her, told her what we wanted. And at the end of it, she goes, I get why you want me. I don't understand why I should want you. Yikes. And she was right. But we left that meeting and we went back and we sat down, myself and the 4 or 5 other people that went, and said, okay, we don't ever want to feel like that again. So first of all, we have to figure out who we are, because obviously we're not a high-end Kansas City market. Emporia is a cool town, you should go see it, but it's a beer and burger, blue-collar town. And we had to quit thinking champagne and caviar and start thinking beer and burgers. And once we got that and truly understood it, we knew that the only path to fill 47% vacancy rate in our downtown was to grow from within. We had to work with entrepreneurs. We had to figure out a way to work with business owners who had passion, but no idea how to run a business. And a lot of times, entrepreneurs are the most fun to work with. I'd rather work with an entrepreneur who's passionate and no clue and no money than a business owner that's been in business for 45 years and is tired and just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. It's so much more fun to work with the passionate ones. But they never have money. They hardly ever know how to run a business. Go out a business like that. So we put together a Start Your Own Business course. And it wasn't your typical go to the small business development center and take their classes. It was bringing people, specialists from the community in to talk to them about, hey, I've had a business open for 5 years and these are the 8 things that you should never do. I did them, not smart, I survived it, but these are the things you should not do. Brought in an attorney to help them understand how to set up their business. Should you be a sole proprietor, an LLC, or a C Corp? What's best to protect you and your family? I mean, all of those kinds of questions, to having to truly understand their market. We had one guy come in he was a hoot and such energy and excitement. But his concept was shotguns and weddings. Yikes, really? With a, I'll just put a curtain down the middle and we'll have wedding dresses on one side and shotguns on the other. And I'm going, I don't think brides who are strange should be near guns. It's not a good idea. So let's think about, what type of business you can have and have them truly do the market research so they understood up front. So it was that kind of, it was a 5-week course, twice a week, 6 to 9 p.m. And there had to be some stick-to-itiveness, and at the end of it, they had a pitch that they could take to a financial institution and a business plan. Now, if they chose to open up a business in the downtown area, we were able to secure $30,000 from a local foundation who believed in what we were doing to loan. We did not grant, because you got to have skin in the game, but at 0% interest. And the maximum they could get was $5,000. So that let us start getting things going. Then we had to work with downtown property owners and say, okay, I know you want this much rent for your building, but you're never going to get it, and it's sat empty for the last 6 years, so what can we do? Can we come in and help clean it up? Can we come in and help promote it? Can we help you separate this into 2 storefronts so you've got 2,500 square feet on each side instead of 5,000 square feet because nobody can use that much square footage at one time? Or do you blank off the back? I mean, all the different kinds of things that you can think about when you're trying to pull a community together. And if you're lucky enough, we were not, but if you're lucky enough to have a local electric co-op who could help you even with power a little bit, we didn't. We had the major one, and they wouldn't help with that. But the city helped with water. I mean, we had all kinds of things that we could really help them get started. And then after a certain amount of time, they had to pay the rates that were expected of everybody else, but it gave them an opportunity to get started. That's how you fill 47% vacancy rate. So it's understanding that we had to work with our existing businesses first. We had to understand we weren't champagne and caviar, that we were beer and burgers, and that was okay. And it's a fun, cool place, got a great vibe. But we had to help them expand. And in some cases, when we did our market assessments, we understood that there was enough leakage that we could pull back into the market, reasonably expect to pull back, but not enough to open up a new business. But we could go to an existing business that had a similar type and said, have you ever thought about carrying this product line? Because we have some data to show that there's a need for it here, but not enough need to open up a new store. Those are the types of things that you can do, and it's truly understanding your market, who you are. But one of the first things I was charged with when I came here was to work with the existing communities who are still calling themselves Main Street after 10 years of not having a state coordinating program. And it became fairly obvious fairly quickly that they were outstanding event planners, for the most part. The majority of them really needed some help with understanding the economics of it. And when you do an event or an activity, what's the economic impact? And when I asked that, I got no, it's a really cool event. No, it needs to be more than that. What's the economic impact? Does it help with tourism? Does it fill your hotels? Does it bring business to a particular sector? How does this, you need to know these things. So it was understanding that design is also a pretty big part of understanding the economics. I love historic buildings, and empty, the worst thing that can happen to a building is for it to be empty. An empty building is sad. A pretty empty building is sadder. You gotta fill it. You gotta know what you're gonna use it for. So think about the economics of that, and that was the piece that I think was really missing here. So we have been conducting market assessments all across the state, and it's been very interesting to go into communities and have people come up to me, and it was Selma, I'll tell you the community. In Selma, we were sitting there and we were learning about all the different, really, by the way, cool stuff going on in Selma. Very cool stuff. But learning about all these different things going on, and I had a young person come sit by me and asked, what we really need is a Target. And I went, like a Target store? He's like, well, maybe that's something different down here. He goes, yeah, like a Target store. I said, you're not getting a Target in Selma. Let's talk about what you can do. Really, let's talk about what you can do. You can dream and you can work on that for 15 years, but your median income here is about $23,000, and you're 54 miles from Montgomery, and guess what? There's a Target there. So you already have that built into the market. You're not going to get that. So let's talk about what you can do and the market pieces that you can work on. Just this last week we did, because Birmingham is so big, and Birmingham is one of our cities, we did downtown proper, which was fun, and we did Inslee, and then we did Eastlake. So 3 very diverse areas for market assessments, because they don't just deal with downtown, they deal with commercial districts that are still within the town so we had to figure that out. So the market assessment piece has been a ton of fun for me. I'm a big nerd, but I do like that part. I think it's fun to be able to provide that type of data to a community and then really work with the Main Street directors, who's ever local in that area, and say, now's when the work begins. Now you know what your market is. Let's go talk to some people. Let's get this thing rolling. So that's the economic impact piece. So Main Street Alabama has introduced a tiered program of services. There's the training, the downtown network, and designated Main Street. If you're not associated, you guys already are, so I'm going to go through this real quick, but we do have some communities who say, we just want to come to a couple of your trainings. Great. You can come to trainings. We have 4 trainings a year. 2 of them are electronic. The other 2 are face-to-face. And we just had one February. I have to stop thinking about my calendar. It's been so crazy. With the board training. Did you come to that? It was fun. Yeah, Carol Wiseman. So that's an all-day training. And if that's what you want to do, you want to learn about it and hopefully be able to take home, put to use, take to home pieces that you can start putting into action when you get home, that's great. $125, anybody's welcome. Not a problem. The next tier is what you guys are already involved in, and this is the Downtown Network. And this is for communities who are just starting the downtown revitalization effort. You're starting to really kind of get a feel for what you want to do. Check out Main Street, build a relationship. I call it dating. We get to know each other a little better. See if this is a good fit for you. And for some community, and this is another reason why it was so wonderful to come to Alabama and start a Main Street program and be able to move quickly, because this is a tier that allows, this may be the capacity that some communities have. That's okay. It's okay. Not every community can be designated. So this gives us opportunities to help more communities. On this one, you get telephone or electronic consultation with Main Street Alabama staff. It says 5 hours because my board goes crazy, but I don't actually clock it. Don't tell them that. We do an on-site initial presentation, which is why I'm here with you all tonight, to tell you more about the Main Street program. This is what we do. And if you want to look at our menu of services and cherry pick a couple of things off that, it gives you a discounted rate to cherry pick some things if you choose to go that direction. The best part, even though I think the training is awesome, but I plan of training is really the interaction with other people from across the state. People who are just as wound up as I am, who want to talk about what's going on and are willing and able to share how they solved issues in their communities. It's just great. At this point, the training drops down to $100 a person, so you do save a little bit of money on coming to the training. The webinars are completely free, so it works out pretty well. We have a ton of educational resources available at our office. I'm old school. I still have a lot of books. I like to read them, touch them, feel them. But there is a lot of electronic resources too. Anywhere from, if you have questions on marketing and branding, design. In fact, at the end of this month, we do have a webinar on our new design tool that will be available to our downtown network communities, and it's design best practices on a whole slew of different things that'll be, because you're one of our downtown network communities, you'll have access to. On this one, it's probably easier to just call me and say, we got an issue with, and sometimes you'll stump me and I'll go, holy cow, and then I'll look around to see what I can find for you. But generally, I've been doing this a long time, I've probably dealt with what you've got going on already and can find something to help you out. We have a regional approach to the downtown network. This has started with the Coastal Gateway area. If you are able to get, I think a minimum of 5, I have to look at my, minimum of 5 communities within a region to participate. It doesn't cost anymore, but they get 2 extra trainings. So I'll come in and do an hour to an hour and a half trainings on one of these topical areas. So it's just a little extra piece. These are our current downtown network communities. So Atmore, Bruton, Butler, Elba, Evergreen, Fort Payne, Grove Hill, Jackson, Jasper, Montevallo, Prattville, Thomasville, Tuskegee, Union Springs, Wetumpka. Why are you not on there? I have to update my stuff. Old, sorry. But what you're interested, I think, in for me to talk to you about tonight is designated communities. So for designation, you have to have a thorough understanding of the 4-point approach. You really need to know what you're getting into. Like I said earlier, I don't have a magic wand. If I did, I would not have allergies in the spring in Alabama because they kill me for about a month. I don't have that. I don't have grant dollars. I don't have a lot of money to bring with me to events and for you to spend in your community. What I do have is a common sense approach to get things done. And if you want to work, we'll work with you. This is the only level of services that authorizes a community to use the trademark Main Street name. The National Main Street Center is serious about their trademark. So you're a downtown network. You cannot call yourselves Main Street until you're designated. So these are our designated communities in 2015. We are within almost a month of announcing our 3 new communities. So applications are due May 1st. They'll be coming in and visiting with us on May 20th for some oral presentations and the selections, and then we'll be adding 3 more names to this list. But right now it's Alexander City, Anniston, Athens, Birmingham, Decatur, Dothan, Eufaula, Florence, Gadsden, Monroeville, Opelika, Oxford, and Selma.
How many do you have applying for this time?
We had 25 communities come to the application workshops. So we had a bunch. Not every one of those. Some of them are going, we're going to do downtown network. We want to date Mary for a year before we get in the series related, which is fine. I actually encourage communities to do that. I'm not going to read this to you, but I will give this to Kathy so you can, and it's being recorded too, but so you can read it because it's kind of small. But some of the things we offer once you're selected. So when we go into these brand new communities come June and through the next year, the first thing we do is a full-day on-site media event to announce the program. It's a lot of fun. Maryland's great at it, gets everybody hyped up. But it also allows us to come in and provide some organizational assistance to really start getting them set up so they understand how to set up their board, their committees. We assist with developing and structuring the board. This is the coolest piece, is the 3 or 4 day resource team. We bring in experts in each of the 4 points, and we come into your town, we live with you for about a week, and really spend some time getting to know you, doing tons of interviews, going separate directions. The first night is the visioning piece, where we really bring the public in and say, what do you want your community and your downtown to be? We need to know from you, because I don't live in Fayette, you guys live here, so what do you want it to be, and how can we make it that way? Then we do tons of interviews, review data on codes and zoning and all the different things that tie into making up a community. And at the end of that, we do a public presentation to give our initial findings, give you your vision, because we'll craft it from what you did with us the first night. And then at about, 6 weeks later, the strategic planning guide is put together from that visit to help guide the program through the first 3 to 5 years. Now, as a brand new Main Street director, sitting in my office, looking through files, going, well, this job isn't that hard. Before it was discovered that they had a Main Street director again, because they'd gone 3 months without one, I had no guide. I had nothing. The phone wasn't ringing because nobody had been in the office for 3 months, so my first 3 days were blissful before I realized just what world I got myself into. So I would have loved to have had something that says, what in the heck are we supposed to be doing? And it'll be broken down by year, so you won't be having, because a lot of times you get these strategic plans, and they have these huge goals and no implementation strategies to get you there. Main Street's about boots on the ground implementation. You want to get stuff done. Once your director is hired at this level, you do have to have a local staff person. We'll come in and help them. We'll do the 4-point training. We do a lot of the stuff on site. We provide general design guidelines, which we're getting ready to release here shortly. The market analysis and economic development strategies specific to the community. So really in the first year, a community sees us about every month to come in and make sure that you're getting a really good start. Now these are communities who are established 4 years plus. They continue to get lots of assistance, updating mission and vision, helping with committee work plans, because it is about getting things done, taking it from that huge vision to what do I need to do in year 1 to get us to year 5. Public presentations if they need them. This is, you can tell I was a long-term Main Street manager because I threw this in here. I was a local Main Street director for 10 years, and after about my 3rd year, because we were required to go to the trainings and all the other things with the state, I was talking to the state coordinator at the time and saying, so what's in it for us? She hated me sometimes, by the way. But so what's in it for us? I said, we're giving you great economic numbers because we kind of figured things out at that point. We were creating jobs and filling storefronts and doing some cool stuff. I said, but I've seen this speaker 3 times. I need more. You know, like you're going to college, I need more, I need better classes. So that's what this is for. It's really to make sure that we tailor stuff to these programs who hung on for 10 years without a state coordinating program, to give them something more, because some of them are doing some pretty amazing things. Look at what Gadsden has done. Yikes, it's amazing. What Birmingham has done. They have done some pretty, Athens, Anniston, I mean, Florence. I mean, we have some really great ones, Dothan, Eufaula. I mean, they've all done good things in a lot of different areas. Community assessments, board retreats, design guidelines. We want to make sure that we continue to service our communities. At this point, the training, they're required to come to training. At least the local executive director is required to come to training. But it's $25 a person instead of $100. So your expectations are much higher, but your benefits are much higher as well. Lots of educational resources, lots of networking, quarterly meetings, and then you're authorized to use the trademark Main Street name at that point. Marilyn Barkin, who is our marketing communications coordinator with Main Street Alabama, does an outstanding job. It's all the cool stuff you see on Facebook and Twitter, and I don't do any of that. I'm on the road all the time. She does all of that. She does a really outstanding job. So if you want to promote an event or an activity, let her know. She will take care of it. And eligible for awards. So there are some requirements at this point. Each community who's designated signs an annual memorandum of agreement. So let's make sure that this is what Main Street Alabama is going to do, and this is the expectations of the community. And it's annual. It's not like you sign it one time and nobody ever talks to you about it again. Every year we talk about what can we do to make you better, what kind of services do we need to provide to help make you better. Understand and commit to the Main Street 4-point approach. So if your only interest is in design, that's great. I'm happy for you that that's not Main Street. So you need to think about, you're going to be doing some stuff in economic development. It may not be a comfortable area for you, but it's an area you may need help in. Consensus-based cooperative partnerships, maintaining a level of program funding. Now this is where most communities go, which is why we have the downtown network piece, which does not require staffing. But at this one, it would be cover the salary and benefits of your local Main Street director and other staff in communities lucky enough to have a larger staff. You probably wouldn't have a lot of extra staff here. Fees to Main Street Alabama, dues to the National Main Street Center, and your overhead. Your rent, utilities, telephone, office equipment, things that you need, printing, marketing materials, whatever it is you need. You are required to employ a professional, a qualified professional, I'll spit it out here in a minute, professional director. Since you're under 5,000 in population, we would allow you to have a part-time director. What that means is somebody will get paid part-time and probably work full-time, which is kind of drag. But Main Street is a full-time job. I can't imagine anybody doing it part-time. Now in Monroeville, which is one of our new cities, who is smaller, they chose, actually both Monroeville and Oxford both chose to have a full-time Main Street director. Well, Oxford's bigger, so they would have had to anyway. And they're required to attend training. So the fees to Main Street in year one is $5,000. The first year we provide about $60,000 in benefit to you, so it's a pretty good return on your investment. Year two is $3,000. That's when we provide the full-blown market assessment for you guys, and implementation strategies and economic development. That's about a $20,000 value. Year three is $2,000. We're still doing a lot of hand-holding in year three to make sure that you've really got a good, solid foundation, and then after that, it's $1,000 a year. So the application process, we have new city application workshops annually each January. We'll flip those between Birmingham and Montgomery, so it'll be a couple of them in each city. The letter of intent is due in early February. Application of 5 copies are due early May. Oral presentations to the selection committee are mid-May. We announce new cities in early June, and services start immediately. And we're booking to the next year. If you want more information about us, the best way to get it, call me, I'm around, but go to our website, and it's just mainstreetalabama.org. Probably the places that you're going to want to look at, there are some printable forms of the tiered services and menu services available, so you don't have to just look at it and capture. We actually did a little PDF that you can print off. But the main pieces would be getting started, frequently asked questions, tiered services, menu services. Those are probably the ones you're going to want to look at. There's my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. Now I do have an office number, but I never put it up there because I'm really not at the office that much. That is my cell. So if you need to catch me on the road, that's the best phone number to catch me on. Do you have questions? Because I know it's a lot and I go fast, but are there questions for me? How it works in other communities?
So a community like Monroeville, what is their population?
I'd have to look at my,
6,800.
thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Right.
I'd have to look at my thing, but, and we allowed them to have the opportunity of a part-time director, and they chose to have a full-time one.
So is that the smallest town that you've done?
I'm thinking population is probably our smallest one right now. In Kansas, our smallest community was about 1,300, and one of our most successful communities. They did an outstanding job. You know, we dealt with things. I remember when they called us, I was a state coordinator at the time, and they called us to tell us that Baker Furniture was closing. And this furniture store occupied 5 or 6 buildings in the downtown area. In a town of 1,300, that's 30 downtown. And they were freaking, and they called me, and I was really freaked out because I'm going, holy cow, that's going to kill this town. It'll just blow up, drive, blow away. So we went in and did an immediate assessment, feasibility study. God, it was cold, it was January, we were in there and these buildings were frozen, and oh my gosh, it was terrible. And they had no hotel. So do you know where we stayed? I don't normally tell people this. You know where they put us up for the night? In the nursing home. It was actually pretty cool. But I said, they put you in the Alzheimer's, so make sure that you shut all the doors. I'm going, what in the world are you doing? Halfway through the night, I'm going, this bed is so hot, because I had rubber sheets on. I'm going, I'm dying. But a really cool place, wonderful hospitality. But the feasibility study for them showed that they had a housing deficit. They'd been in a floodplain, and where most of the housing in the city was. And a lot of the houses had been taken for demolition. I mean, they were terrible, terrible condition. These were all 2-story buildings. It's a cool town, if you ever get a chance to see it. It was built in about 1.5 years because of the railroad. So it's truly an 1880s downtown. Limestone buildings, 2-story, gorgeous. Never had enough money to mess it up. So a neat little town, neat little railroad town. The feasibility study showed that if they did housing on the upper stories, they could go dark below. Do you know what I mean by that? They could make enough cash flow on the buildings to really use the lower levels as an economic incubator for small businesses. But they had to get enough housing dollars to fill the upper stories, so they did some housing tax credits and filled the upper stories with housing, and that helped cash flow the building. So, but they got 5 buildings for like $120,000 too. They were terrible shape. So there's a lot of work to be done on. But a little bitty town. Another cool thing about this town is they wanted to have, when we did the feasibility piece, the public really got fired up because they were worried. What are we going to do? Our town's going to die. And they said, what we really, really like to have is a white tablecloth restaurant, Italian restaurant. Wow, 1,300 people. Can't make a living on birthdays and anniversaries. You can't. So we knew that feasibly was never going to happen. But it kept coming up over and over and over, obviously, in a depressed town, worried about what's going to happen, what can we do to try to make something happen. So we talked to the local mom and pop restaurant, the one restaurant in the downtown, that was only open for breakfast and lunch, which is pretty standard in little towns, and they're never open on Mondays. So if you're traveling through small towns in Kansas on Mondays, pack a lunch, because you're going to starve.
Yeah.
Otherwise. And if convenience store burritos, bad. So we talked to them and said, hey, there's a young couple who would be interested in kind of taking a chance on a bistro, but a restaurant startup is horribly expensive. The 2 biggest failures in business tend to be restaurants and retail clothing. It's tough. It's just really, really tough to make a cash flow. So we said, could they buy your nighttime business? And they looked at us like we were insane. No, we don't want to work nights. No, we don't want you to work nights. We want you to turn this into. And it took convincing that we weren't insane, which I try real hard, but people think I'm crazy sometimes. But we sat down and talked to them and said, really what we'd like to do is every Friday and Saturday night, we'd like to turn your restaurant into an Italian bistro and let this young couple kind of test market this. And the biggest argument after we finally convinced them, I think we could do this, was we had to tape off the cooler, because there was big arguments over who got what part of the cooler. I said, wow, we've been through all this, and now I gotta tape the cooler, this is wild. This is my side, this is your side. And once we got all of that figured out, and everybody knew where their stuff went, I understood, because it was an inventory piece, and you had to understand whose was what's inventory. This couple really did pretty well there. But they never would have made it on their own. They never would have been able to afford to put in a commercial kitchen and in a building that didn't have one. It's horribly expensive. And they were able to generate an evening traffic. And this little town was between Wichita and Emporia, so it started drawing people because they had a lot of really cool music in this community, a lot of great musicians. So it started to be a draw regionally. But people, professional people weren't coming over on a Wednesday night. So there was no reason for the bistro to be open on a Wednesday night. It turned out to be wildly successful. So little towns have to take the model and scale it to what works for them. Long answer to a short question.
What's the name of the town?
How long did it take them?
What's the name of that town?
Peabody.
Thanks.
What is the, and I'm thinking that perhaps you already do this in your assessment of the community, but what do you find are the cultural and historical impacts on the progress in I mean, for example, in this community, we have a lot of arts. We have music, we have visual arts, we have an art museum, we have some things a lot of small towns don't have. And we're also starting an Arts Alliance. We're
Cool.
so those are the kinds of things. What impact do the cultural things have on the
A huge
development of the
impact.
city?
A huge impact, and you've got to be authentic to yourself. So, a really good example is Athens, Alabama. Does this big, huge event called the Athens Grease Festival. It's pretty funny stuff. It's GREASE. It's a celebration of everything fried. It's a hoot. They do it in togas. It's amazing. But it only makes sense in Athens, Alabama.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't make sense in Anniston or anything. It's funny. You ever a chance to get, you gotta go. Monroeville with the Tequila, and I was just there this last weekend with the Tequila Mockingbird. Oh, gosh, that's amazing. The first time I seen them play, that was amazing.
They did it here.
They did it
That's what I
here.
heard.
It was
That's
great.
it's pretty great stuff. So yeah, you need to build off what's your authenticity, and you have a local artist who's, okay, they
But
were
we
explaining a
also
little
have
bit.
a very wonderful art museum here.
And we've had Arts Festival for over 40-something years, so, I mean, that's
Yeah,
one
so
of
it's
the
building
longest.
off those local assets are super important. It was like I told you earlier, looking at my town and trying to be Lawrence, Kansas, which is a cool place, but their incomes are much, that's where the doctors and lawyers get schooled, it's at KU. I mean, it's a high-end town and it's awesome. If you get a chance to go to Lawrence, Kansas, you should go, but not everybody can be Lawrence. And once we figured out we need to quit trying to be that, we need to be Emporia and celebrate the things that were unique to us, like Veterans Day. Veterans Day was celebrated a year earlier in Emporia than it was in the rest of the nation, because the senator and they would shoot me because I can't remember all the people's names in the story, said we need to take it from Armistice Day to Veterans Day, and they were from Emporia that did it. So we actually celebrated it 1 year earlier than everybody else. It's a home of Veterans Day. That's very cool. Nobody else can claim that. So those are the things you need to look at. But don't just brand yourself as an arts and entertainment district, because everybody does that. What kind of art is important to you and authentic to you, and you can build upon, and then you can build a brand around it. It would really be pretty slick. I will tell you, I got off the highway, I was telling the mayor, it's a beautiful drive here. It's worth the drive. And then you get to the town, I was like, oh my gosh. I was texting, I was calling Kathy going, I'm here. Texting a friend of mine going, this is a charming town. Charming downtown, and a beautiful drive off 22. Did take a little bit to get here, yeah, but it was well worth it. It wasn't like you finally get to the end of the highway going, oh, it was.
And there's so much
It's a
about
jewel.
our environment, the Sipsey River and our woods and things like that, that we take for granted because we see it every day. But I'm always reminded, a person came from England for my husband's funeral, and I was apologizing for the accommodations because there was a mattress on the floor. And they were just so taken with the environment and, oh, this is wonderful because we've seen birds that we've never seen before. And so there's those kinds of things that, talking about the rural tourism, we take it it, but
And you do. I think, and I think my home state's beautiful. I think Kansas is a beautiful state. But people don't, vacation in Kansas. They drive through it really fast to get to Colorado. My family asks me all the time, Mary, Alabama's 750 miles from where I'm from. I said, I know that. I said, but here's the deal. I'm 4 hours on the mountain to the beach.
Yeah.
And every bit of it's pretty. I could just find the right combination of allergy medicines. Beautiful in the spring too. We're close. We're close. I almost got a tweet. But I mean, what you have here. And sometimes you live here and you take it for granted, but it's absolutely beautiful here. And it's pretty here in this area. It's really, really nice. And to have the stores, I did some market research while I was here, which is a nice way of saying I spent some money. How cute is that? Very cute. For my sister's weekend next weekend. But you have I think you can undiscovered and unusual stores here that people I never realized was here in Fayette. We'll be tweeting. Well, Marilyn won't. I don't know how to tweet, but Marilyn will take care of that for me. Take pictures of things and send them off. And your hotel opportunity. Wow. Has everybody been up there?
no, I don't
Fully.
think, probably
Fully
the
cow.
majority of the people here don't really know about it.
It's amazing. That's a treasure. And your roof is good. I have been in some rat hole buildings in my life that I've been afraid to walk through in boots, much less heels, and a hard hat, and that building has huge potential. Huge potential. In fact, I called a developer friend of mine already and said, you need to come look. I don't know if he will, but it's worth, He said, it's pretty cool. Great opportunity, and what a fun place to stay. And that's the cool thing about downtowns right now, is the pendulum has kind of swung back. You do need to think about your technical infrastructure, and I did not ask about that. Do you have fiber? So you already have it? It's huge. That was a big problem in some of our communities in Kansas to try to get youth to come back, because you can live pretty much within reason anywhere, depending on what kind of job you have, and do that job, but you got to have good technical infrastructure. If you have good technical infrastructure and all the cool stuff that you've got here, fix up that upper story, maybe take the big 5-story building and turn it into some really nice housing, you'll attract youth back too. So another cool thing that Peabody did is they used their alumni association, and they have a big weekend, the Memorial Day weekends, when everybody comes back to play in Peabody. It's nuts. It like triples the population. I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy. And I said, why aren't you using that to say, you can come home and stay? Let's talk about good technical infrastructure. Let's talk about all the things that we have. Let's talk about our location. Have you thought about investing in Peabody? And they go, well, we'll probably only get 1 or 2 bites. I said, how many are you getting now? None. This is beautiful. I can imagine people want to come back. But you got to ask. And I think sometimes we wonder why people don't come back and spend time in our communities, and we kind of grumble and we gripe about it, and then you got to stop and ask, did anybody ask them? Have they been invited? If they get invited. I send money to my little Catholic school in Garnett, Kansas every year because they asked. The high school hasn't figured that out yet. They haven't asked me to come back and do some stuff yet, but if they asked, I'd go. Any other questions for me?
Or what about comments? Do you all have ideas, thoughts, comments for the general good?
I like that.
How can Main Street, Alabama make our businesses stronger?
I think truly understanding it. I asked every business that we had time that I wasn't spending money in. So we were wandering around. I saw that and said, where do you draw your market from? And the answers ranged anywhere from, we're just local, to Huntsville. If you have people drawing from Huntsville, and the other businesses around them are taking advantage of that, and you're not doing cooperative advertising, cooperative marketing, and second of all, make sure that they understand truly what their market is, because you will do these. I get frustrated with studies, and let's have a study, and because we've got to have it. And then the study gets put on the shelf. It's in a pretty binder, typically, a really nice binder, and then like 5 years later, somebody says, we need a study. We haven't done anything with the other study. Let's pull out some of your old studies. let's see what you've got. You may already have market data that says there's some gaps, but just because there's a huge gap doesn't mean you can truly draw it all back. And I think that's the problem I have with market analysis sometimes in these companies that will come in and tell you, you've got a $12 million leakage in whatever category it is. Well, yeah, you're next to a town that has a car dealership and you may not have one. I'm just using that as an example, but you need to think about what you can truly expect to draw back. So I think understanding your market is a pretty big piece. I think really having a community vision, and you may have that already. This is my first visit here. And then looking at the feasibility, which I understand you've already had the feasibility done for perhaps looking at some hotel space or even housing in the bigger building, would be things that you could do from I always look at the economic development piece. So from an economic development perspective, I would certainly look at those and pull out little studies to see if you can support some of that. You have a beautiful place here. Talk about it. It's cool.
What do you recommend as being our next step? I mean, Danny and I kind of understand the application process, and the letter of intent means that you've got to get the support of the city council, the county commission, the chamber of commerce, generally the community, correct? How do we get to that point? How do you recommend we go about doing that?
I would recommend that you put together a strategic planning group, and you may already have, and on that group, when I come into communities and they're asking me about Main Street, if I only meet with city officials, it's a red flag. If I only meet with merchants, it's a red flag, because somebody's not talking to other people, and that happens sometimes in communities. We want the city to do boom, boom, or we want the merchants to do boom, 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 they're not talking to one another. That didn't happen here. So having understanding the public-private partnership piece that everybody needs to be involved in. But you're gonna have to start having some meetings. You're gonna have to start drumming it. If you wanna be Main Street, which I assume is really what you're asking, start drumming up some support. Think about, you could take an existing position. The Main Street Director does not have to be a standalone position. It could be incorporated into an existing position to have a full-time job. That's what they did in Peabody, in that little bitty town. He was the Economic Development Director for the city. It always made me laugh. Little bitty town had, and the Main Street Director. But between the two jobs, he had a full-time job in Peabody, Kansas. So think about that. Think about how you're going to staff it, if you want to staff it. Think about, do you have capacity? In the long run, do you have capacity, or is Downtown Network the best place for you? Understanding that your services are fairly limited with Downtown Network, but I'll help you. If you want me to come back and do some other presentations and try to get people fired up, I'll be happy to do that. I'll come shop. It was fun. You're not that far, so you're a pretty easy cruise for me. Yeah. Well, that's good, because most people aren't. Visit with Main Street Community, and I was so impressed. It was, I knew the mayor had talked to Monroeville, because she ratted him out when I was down there. She said, hey, the mayor from Fayette called, and I said, yeah, I'm going to be speaking there this week, but he also spoke to Oxford, and Rod did not rat you out. So I think that's really smart. I think it's super smart for him to call other cities and say, is this just a bunch of smoke, or are you actually getting stuff done? How do we move things? I don't know what you asked. She didn't tell me what you asked, just that she called. But I think that's really smart. I would encourage you to visit other communities, whether they're Main Street or not, that are of similar size, and maybe some that are a little bigger, or maybe some that are a little smaller, and see different things that they've done that you may think would float well. From the arts perspective, from what you talked about earlier, sir, go to communities that do these really cool arts pieces, see how they do it.
We've done some of that already.
That's great. So, because it's always a little bit about, Main Street's about, research and development, or reflect and duplicate, whatever one you want to call it, R&D. But sometimes you got to look at what other communities are doing well and then see, can I take that piece that works and have it here? We have a couple of communities that have incorporated the arts, the entertainment district piece that allows a little bit more dining with wine and those types of things on the sidewalk. I don't know if you're ready for something like that, but that's an interesting component that I'm seeing more and more of in communities. Decatur is doing that. Florence is looking at it. I'm just trying to think of our Main Street communities. The closest one in size to you, but not in distance, is Alexandria. Alex City would be smaller than Monroeville. Alex City is probably our smallest one, I think. Is it smaller than? No, I'm saying it's probably smaller than Monroeville. Alex City. They may not be. They're probably bigger. as an entire city. Their downtown is real small.
Well, downtown, it's fun.
It's a cool downtown. And Alexander City is a fun one to work in because they have a really cool market, farmers market there that's, I think, one of the most unique in Alabama, in that they have a rule that you can only have farmers market items within a certain distance of Alex City. So it truly is locally grown. They're not, you can't ship any boxes of peaches from Georgia because that's not authentic to them, which I think is really, really cool. So when you talk about authenticity, they do a really good job. And in visiting with them, we're working with them right now on and perhaps maybe USDA piece to help with the community kitchen, commercial kitchen, so that we can have a farmer's market there. Because it's so slick and so cool, and they're having the lake development. I have familiar are with Alex City, but the lake development is really cool, but it's going to affect downtown. So what can we do to try to capture a piece of that lake development too? So they're thinking forward, thinking ahead. I love Alex City. It's fun. It's funky. It's very funky getting into their downtown. Anything else?
Next Tuesday night, the Community Development Corporation is going to have a meeting at 5 o'clock at the Civic Center. So any of you who are here, if you would like to come, and we'll open that meeting with a discussion as a kind of a follow-up from this, and you all go think about it and express your feelings. Mayor, do you think that might be a good idea?
And what's the,
Kind of follow.
Yes, ma'am.
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock, yeah, at the Civic Center, Tuesday the 28th.
Feel free to call me with questions. If you want me to come back, but you probably ought to think for a while, let it perk a little bit.
And we'll be interested to hear from your development friend.
Hopefully he's called. I sent him a text message.
Just give us a ring and we'll roll out the red carpet.
I actually sent it to my guy on the hotel project that I worked in Emporia with the, I don't know if he'll come from Kansas, but he would love to see this. And he does small projects, so.
Did she get a CD of the?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Great audience.
She got the video, but we want to get her a CD of pictures of the hotel.
Oh, yay.
That was what I was talking about.
Oh, I have a Dropbox if you just want to send it to me electronically. If you send it as a Dropbox link, I can pull it in. If not, you can send me a CD, that's fine.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.